Hello everyone, the music is down and the curtains are up, we're ready to begin. I'd like to thank Nat for putting together that music, it was lovely. Makes you feel very relaxed on the stage. So let the last few come in. So welcome to the Sitecore Business User Group, May 1. They seem to be coming around very quickly, they seem to sneak up on us a little bit, but what an amazing turnout, so thank you all for making the effort to come down here today. I've got a couple of bits of housekeeping to go over before we really crack on. First one is fire exits. If you were here before, we didn't have any fire drills or anything. We're not expecting any more today, but if anything does happen, then please go running like hell for the doors. There's plenty of them around. Two at the back and two at the sides here. A couple of other bits that might be of interest to you. We've got a touchscreen out in the foyer there that's got our customer experience maturity model. So if you'd have heard us talk about that a little bit now, and this is an assessment tool that we use at Sitecore to gauge where you are in your digital maturity. So during lunch, during the drinks breaks, do go out there and have a little play and just see where you might be. And it'll be interesting to see some of the feedback that we get from that. We've also got Candy, our resident training manager. She's sat out by the front desk. So if you've got any training requirements specific to you as an organisation, then go and have a chat with her. She's very nice, so she'll be very friendly for you. And the last one is Steve is going to run a bit of a Q&A at the end of the DMS piece today on your agendas. If you're shy, then you can come up and just write down. There'll be a bit of paper on the table up here next to the lectern. So come up and write any questions that you might have. We haven't got a Twitter feed going, but do come up and write down. We're going old school on that one a little bit retro. So to come up and write down your questions that you might have. So DMS Kickstart. That is the tagline that's been associated with this business user group today. The reason behind it is we've spent a lot of time over the last few business user groups talking about the theory, the art of the possible that you can get with your Sitecore platform, and in particular the digital marketing system. And today we're really moving on from that. We're not going to talk about the theory anymore. We want to give you the tools that you can take away and really start to go off and use in your own projects. Hence the name Kickstart. Let's get started with DMS. It took us ages to come up with that. We're not a marketing department, we're a customer enablement department. So to start off, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the product and marketing update. We'll get out of the way. We won't be doing a full product roadmap today. We've got more important things to concentrate on, but I will give you a little bit of an insight as to what you can expect coming up over the next few months. We're then going to dive into Sandra and Jonathan von Abo are going to be coming up on stage and be looking at some of the things that will get you started with the DMS, the 3 things that we want you to take away from today's session. We'll then look a little bit about how you plan around the DMS before taking a short break. We're going to look at the engagement value scale and creating goals within Sitecore, something that we've talked a lot around theory before, but this is really the fundamental starting piece for your DMS projects. So we're going to look at how we actually set up an engagement value scale, what that means to us as organizations, and how we apply goals to that and start to track our users and the value that they might bring to us. We'll then have a look at the analytics and measuring engagement. Now we're capturing all this information. What can we actually see through the Sitecore interface to see what our users are doing with our product? Bit of a roundup, as I mentioned, Steve's going to be answering some Q&A, so do stick your hands up and do ask some of the experts that are going to be up on stage throughout the day. And at the end, Anthony Hook is going to come up on stage and talk a little about the Adaptive Print Studio, which is for those of you who have print requirements within your companies at the moment. This is something that we're hugely excited about, so we wanted to give you a bit of exposure to that throughout the day. Then we'll be having the traditional drinks and networking piece afterwards, so a bit of a chance to kick back, relax, talk about the great presentations that you've seen, and get to meet some other people that you might not have spoken to before. So it's a very good turnout today. So a bit of an update to start with from the customer enablement team, what we've been up to. So recently we ran a charity sector roundtable session. This is something that you'll be seeing a lot more from us over the next few months and over the next year. We're looking to get together groups like this, but it's more sector specific, to sit around, talk about some of the challenges that you might face. The charity one was the second one we ran. It was a very good turnout. It was a very interactive session. We really enjoyed it. And we're in the process at the moment of trying to put together a bit of a B2B one and also one for the financial sector. So if you've got any ideas around this as well, please get in touch with your account managers, Steve and myself, and tell us, if there's things that you want to see, if things that you think you would benefit from. This is something we're going to see a lot more from us, from the customer enablement team. From a training point of view, We've got front-end developer course, which we're expecting in July. So these are the guys around there who deal with the real front-end design and development. It's a course we haven't had before. It's a course that's been high in demand. So we expect a bit of communication around that as well. And finally, Symposium, Sitecore European Symposium 2014, out in Barcelona this year. So if as many of you could sign up to that, that would be great, because it helps me field a big case for going out to Spain, which I've always wanted to. So I'd appreciate that personally. But Symposium will be where we'll have all the bigwigs from across the Sitecore corporation talking about what we're going to see over the next year with Sitecore. This is a real big event for us, and it's very exciting. We will, of course, communicate everything that comes out of that event to you all in groups like this and via email and through us as account managers. But if you do fancy a trip out to Spain, it's really worthwhile going out there, so a little bit of a plug there. And finally, we've grown. I'd like to welcome Lucy Rodgers and Joe Black to the team. They've joined us Lucy's joined us as an account manager and Joe as an account exec. So if you do see emails flying through from them or messages from people you haven't heard that from Sitecore before, it's these guys who've joined us in the customer enablement team. So we're building out that team to give you a better service. That's not them, by the way. That's from the stock brand, and they're at the back somewhere, and they'll come around and say hello throughout the day. I'm going to talk a little bit now about the product and what we can possibly expect to see or what we're going to see over the next couple of months. On the horizon, we have Sitecore 7.5, the next release of Sitecore. Some of you will be sat there thinking, well, we haven't even got to Sitecore 7 yet, or we're just about to. This is a few months off, and Sitecore 7.5 is an interesting one. It's one that internally we're very excited about. And today I'm going to put a bit of a business frame around it because it is a very technical release. As marketers, you might not necessarily see any front-end changes, new features that you can use. That's still very much the DMS piece that you'll be making use of that came out in 6.5 and is continuing to be built on previous releases. But the big buzzword around 7.5 is big data. And I say buzzword because it's been a bit of a hot topic for a number of years now, even before I came to Sitecore. It was something we were talking about in my previous organizations. And I don't think the concept of big data has been defined and explained well enough for us as a marketing group. It's kind of just put out there. It can be quite intimidating as a term. No one really knows what it is. So we've got to handle big data. Well, what does that actually mean? So I'm going to try and put a bit of context around what it is. Gartner use a model to define big data as the 3 Vs: volume, velocity, and variety. Some people, like Robin here, has tried to tag on veracity, which is the truthfulness, accuracy of data collection. And as you can see, Batman is not particularly happy with that. And he's given Robin a slap to say it's not a measure of magnitude. But what it basically means is we're in the age of true multi-channel, and it's a concept that we've talked about a lot at these business user groups. In the realms of the data that we're collecting, it's just become massive, and it's constantly growing. And I'll put some context around that a bit later as well. And if you think about some of the channels that you have, from web, social, email, mobile, even up to smart TVs, iBeacons, touch screens. I spoke at the last user group about globalization strategies and a trend that we're going to see a lot more from organizations over the next few years. I know some of you are embarking on that now, but these big globalization strategies are also going to add to the amount of data that we're collecting and have access to, and as marketers that we need to understand. We need to understand how our different audiences are engaging with us, and that we need to be able to analyze that and use that. So one quite key problem is that this data is often unstructured. It often lives in different silos. It becomes unmanageable, and potentially it becomes unusable. And this means that big data and analytics tend to go very much in hand. If we can manage this data, then we can analyze it and we can mine some value out of it. Because without being able to analyze the data, it becomes meaningless. Big data isn't just about storing masses of data. I've recently moved into a house and I've got a loft for the first time and I've started to fill it up already. So I'm already collecting that data, to use an analogy that I'm desperate not to go too far down the line with, looking at the blank faces in the room. But I've started to fill this loft with stuff. And the more I fill it with, the more I collect, the less usable the bits at the back become. And that's the same. That's kind of the concept of big data here. So in today's business environment, the analytics piece can become very complex. Aggregating data from multiple projects and applications and in various different formats into a single analysis is a big challenge. 7.5 attempts or goes to break that down. It introduces a Sitecore Experience database. which is the foundation of the Sitecore Experience Platform, the piece that you're all using right now. It allows us to provide a single source of customer intelligence that can power every interaction across every channel in real time. That's a bit of a background as to how Sitecore is attacking this use of big data, this concept of big data. To put it into more context, also, how big is big data? And this is the piece that I have always found confusing and I've always found has not been communicated well enough. To put it in a little bit of context, every day we generate 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. Wow, massive. And it's estimated that 90% of that figure has been acquired over the last 2 years. It's huge. It just shows the ramp up in the amount we're collecting on our users. And Sitecore's partly to blame for that because of the amount that we collect of interactions of our users. It's just a massive amount of data. But what does it actually mean? Well, essentially, it's when the data we collect as organizations becomes so large that we are unable to process it by our traditional methods. It's at this point that we begin to refer to it as big data. But this word is completely contextual. It's different to different organizations. The reason I say it's contextual is because we all use different methods of data collection. We all have different resources. We all collect different amounts of data, so it must be contextual. There is no number that we can put on this concept of big data. Like we can say, well, is it 7 terabytes? Is it 70 terabytes? Is it 700 terabytes? It's contextual to you as an organization. And the word big, in my opinion, is the wrong word to use because it strikes the fear of God into people. It can also strike a level of excitement. It can also be used as a bit of a boastfulness amongst the rest of us, but we won't go there too much. But I don't think it's the right word that we should be using. It's too late for that now. We're too far down the line, but it shouldn't scare people. It's completely contextual to you as an organization. It's that point where you're unable to manage the amount of data you have, and then you go and find more mature tools to manage that. And that's where Sitecore 7.5 comes in. And I'm going to invite Anthony Hook up to the stage just shortly to talk in a little bit more detail about what 7.5 does and how it goes about this. And we're not going to bang on about it too much because at the next user group we're doing a lot more detail. But I wanted to try and get you thinking about where Sitecore is going in terms of managing this concept. So the question that I've put at the bottom of my bit of paper here in my presentation is my data big? Well, in my opinion, yes. Because we all know that Sitecore collects a huge amount of data. You're starting to experience this with your DMS implementations, and we will hear a lot about it through today when Sandra and the team start talking about the analytics piece and goals and tracking of our users. So you will have big data, in my opinion. And you're tracking individual interactions, every individual interaction that comes to your website. 7.5 looks to provide the tools that not only allows you to collect it, but genuinely enable you to mine value out of it. And this is where Anthony's going to come in and start to talk a little bit more as to how that will go forward. I was hoping he was going to be closer to the stage. That would have made that a lot more seamless, wouldn't it?
Super, thanks, Phil. I assume these microphones are all sorted. Super. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to have to stand behind this because I've not got a mic on. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Anthony Hook. I'm the Strategy and Innovation Director at Sitecore. I look after a couple of areas of business, mostly sort of pre-sales engineering and then innovation products and getting our new products to market with our customers and the wonderful account management team. So hands up who's seen any press releases around Sitecore 7.5 this last week? 1, 2, crikey. We need to do some more marketing. Okay, so for those of you that haven't seen any releases around 7.5, ultimately, just to clarify, the latest and current version of Sitecore is 7.2. I would always advise you to get up to that version as fast as possible. I'm not going to go into a deep dive on what 7.2 is, but there's lots of performance enhancements when it comes to things like publishing and a lot of data integrity enhancements when it comes to things like the DMS. So I'd recommend you get on that ASAP. There is no 7.3, there is no 7.4. I'm not responsible for product engineering, so don't ask me. But 7.5 will be the next release. We've announced that over the last week or two, and it will be available for general release kind of around probably end of July, August time. There's a couple of customers who, some of you may be in this room, who are currently on a Lighthouse program where we're rolling out sort of beta versions of the software. What 7.5 tries to do is to essentially it replaces the scaffolding that we have in place for the DMS right now. The current digital marketing system is based on collecting data through your Sitecore front end, storing it in a SQL Server analytics database, and then repurposing that data and making it available back to the marketer to either do real-time personalization or to do reporting analysis. You can obviously take that data out and just put it into any other system, do whatever you like with it, and some of our customers do. Some of the limitations with the approach that we had was that the analytics database couldn't scale to customers when they were getting hundreds of gigabytes of data per month. What we found is that the digital marketing system allowed a customer to track any digital touch point. So in Sitecore, so hands up who's running a website in Sitecore. Should be everybody's hand. Great stuff. Hands up who's running a mobile website. Great stuff. Hands up who's running a touchscreen kiosk. Okay, one. How many people are running a smart TV product through Sitecore? Okay, so again, these types of new mediums, these new channels are really starting to become quite prevalent in the Sitecore market. We've got a couple of customers in the UK, plenty in the US doing it, where we're running smart TV channels, we're running touchscreens, we're running all sorts of different devices. And what that means is the more devices we have, the more channels we have, the more need to track the effectiveness of those given channels. So the digital marketing system talks about this construct of goals and engagement value, and Sandra's going to spend some time talking about it in a moment. And we want to track every single touch point. We want to track who they are, where they've been, what they've done. And that really leads into us ending up capturing big data. I share the same thoughts as Phil, really, that the name big data is not quite right, it's contextual. And Phil was right in that the real definition of big data is when it gets to a point where you can't manage it in a spreadsheet anymore. You can't just take that data out of some simple table and go, oh, we had 10 visitors today, or we had 100 visitors yesterday. What the scaffolding really allows us to do now is to move away from a SQL Server dependent architecture into a NoSQL dependent architecture. So what will happen is that your Sitecore solution will be able to collect data at a much faster rate than it currently does. Now, for some customers who are maybe running on our primary editions, that from a scale perspective is not really required. For those customers who are running on professional enterprise editions, then it's absolutely required. We have organizations out there for our EasyJets, our HSBCs, who are collecting data at such a rate that the SQL Server dependent architecture is really not the right approach for the future. I've got a couple of diagrams. I'm not actually going to share with you, but what we can do is if anybody wants to know a little bit more about the 7.5 architecture, then we can come and find me afterwards, or we'll be getting in touch with you individually over the next couple of months to talk about it. Some of the benefits to this new architecture, one is speed. What we can do is we can now get data back into our reporting environment so fast that if you are a B2B organization or a B2C organization that has, for example, a call center operation, we can actually get the exact picture of that customer straight through to CRM really quickly. That means that it will come through Sitecore, and again, you can have things like geo-load balanced and super distributed server architectures and all those wonderful scale things that some of our customers need. But once it actually hits and a customer starts building up a picture of them, who they are, what they've done, what their behavior is, where they've been, that is then presented to a back-end solution that is extremely accessible and can be pumped directly into CRM. So that's kind of the type of benefits that we've got. For some of our larger customers, hands up who's implemented any type of data warehousing solution, SaaS, Teradata, anything like that in their organization. Okay, a few hands going up. Okay, great stuff. Hands up who's considering implementing a data warehouse. Great stuff. We should all talk. And that's what we should do, because the Sitecore 7.5 solution allows the Sitecore solution to potentially be your first foray into your data warehousing. Sitecore now isn't just concerned with tracking the data that it collects. Sitecore is now concerned about tracking data from other systems. If you have any line of business applications, any retail operation, any type of data capture, it might be sales guys in the field with an iPad where they're collecting data about their customers. We want to tie that back to Sitecore. We want the ability to pull that into our experience database. We will naturally abstract that into things like CRM solutions and other line of business applications because we appreciate we don't own the entire stack. There are some major benefits to that. If you're collecting data from a third-party channel like retail, for example, that means that when the customer comes onto the website, we can immediately personalize the journey. Okay, you have been into insert popular high street retailer, and you have bought, insert popular make of jeans. Great, here's a top that then matches what you're looking for. Oh, actually, when you were last on the site, you were looking at particular jackets over a value of X. So when they go into store and they hand over their loyalty card, why don't we implement a cross-sell or an upsell opportunity at the point of sale? There are those types of interactions that make it possible. You might be implementing a data warehouse custom, you might be implementing on NoSQL, maybe something like MongoDB like we have done. But if you're considering doing that, or you have already done that, we should talk about how our new technology can interact with that data warehousing proposition that you currently have. So there is going to be a lot of information coming about Sitecore 7.5 over the coming months. It is correct that it will be dependent on a NoSQL solution. That NoSQL solution is known as MongoDB. You can go to mongodb.com or mongodb.org to find out more information about that, or talk to your partner. They will be able to give you some information about sort of those solutions. And it will potentially be a breaking change as well for some of the organizations who are SQL Server dependent right now. 7.5 will force you to support that type of solution with a digital marketing system going forward. For our smaller customers who don't necessarily need the huge amounts of scale, it's superbly abstracted. So you don't have to worry about the setup of these complex environments. You don't have to worry about the setup of all these other types of database structures. And Sitecore will be offering a cloud-based solution over the coming months. So in sort of September onwards, we'll have the opportunity for you to abstract all of your Sitecore experience data into what we call our Experience Cloud. Kind of like a sort of web trend SaaS, Google Analytics type hosted type solution. So, if you have any questions specifically about it, then please come and find me afterwards. I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of it later on. Otherwise, please get in touch with your partner manager or hold tight for the next releases. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.